This is section 3.2 out of chapter 3, graphical and tabular data. Specifically, in this section in 3.2, we will be looking at pie charts and two-way variables. Our objectives, and when you get done with this, is you should be able to construct a pie chart and interpret what it means, construct and interpret these two-way tables, and then use the two-way tables and actually the pie charts when you interpret them to compute proportions. So here I've got just a random pie chart set up. And here's some facts about it. So the slices represent different categories. Usually we have a legend with this where it tells us what red represents, green represents, and blue, etc. And so when we get to more details, we'll show what each of these colors represent. So these colors, each one represents some sort of category. The proportion of the total area of one of these slices is equal to the relative frequency of the category. Now what that means is, if you take a circle, the area of a circle, let's pick a color here, is given to us by 2 pi r squared. So we could come up with, depending on how big our circle is, we can come up with the total area. And then when we try to figure out how big one of these slices should be, let's use this blue one here, the lighter blue. If I knew what the total area was, because I'm drawing my circle and I can calculate the area, then the light blue one would be, since it's 35%, the area of light blue sector there, the area of that would just be 0.35 or 35% of the total area, or 0.35 times 2 pi r squared. So this does, when you get, when this is 35%, this blue section, that's actually 35% of the whole entire area. This 29% is 29% of the entire area. So graphically, it is representing these percentages or those proportions. We do usually write these relative frequencies as percents, not the decimal value. And when you get done, these should add up to 100, because 100% would be the entire pie. When we make pie charts in here, now we're juniors and seniors, or whatever age you are, once you get in high school, you'll be using technology to make these pie charts. So you're using Desmos or a sophisticated calculator for it, or a computer, or your iPads to make pie charts, to make them look accurate. This should say example, construct and interpret pie chart. That's what we were just talking about, looking at those pie charts. Actually, this one will be an example. Forgot. So here's some data, and what we're going to do is we're going to analyze this data by making a pie chart. So you can see this is what job do kids want to have when they grow up. So they surveyed a bunch of kids, and spy agent got 16%, being a veterinarian got 13%, an athlete 12, movie star 10, video game doctor, and then at the very bottom you can see it's other. So what we want to do is represent this in a pie chart. Okay, here's the directions of what we want you to do. Okay, number one, use technology to make the pie chart. We're going to find the proportion of observations that fall in the spy category. We'll find the proportion that do not fall in the spy category, fall in the athlete category or movie star category. And then on the basis of the pie chart, a student concludes that 6% of all American children want to be a doctor when they grow up. What would you tell the student? So these are the questions that we're going to answer about, we'll jump back there, about this data right here. Now, to do this, what I've done is put a video up. And so if you pause this video, click on the video that says example of a pie chart, and you can watch the video, and then you'll know how to make them using actually Google Sheets. So pause this video and then go ahead and once you get done watching that video, you can pop back in here. So I've taken my data here and I've put it into Google Forms. Let's see if we can clean this up and make it look just a little bit nicer. Um, so we can add outlining to this here. There we go. And we'll separate each of those things. That'll work nicely. Then I think we can shade this somehow. I'm not quite sure how to do it on the iPad, but that's all right. Now I've got my data all highlighted. Let me highlight that again. I'm just grabbing the corner there, dragging it down. Now we're going to add a graph to this. So I'm going to hit the plus sign up here. We're going to choose chart. And the chart we're going to do is a column chart. But we're working on pie chart, so we're going to select pie. Let's go ahead and see if we can add our legend. And let's see if we can label these things. At least we'll have that. And we'll hit the check mark just to take a look at it. So that's not too bad. Okay, it would be nice if we had our percents in there. I'm going to undo that stretch here. If you always grab by the corner, it'll stretch proportionally. Otherwise, if you grab by a side, for example, you can compress it or stretch it, so you don't want to do that. And we're going to change the title of this to a more appropriate title here. And this would be the jobs that were preferred. Oops. And I want to make sure that I get my title right here. So let me check off on that. So this was what kids want to be when they grow up. Let's pull that chart up again. We'll edit it. And I would like to, and if you guys can figure this out, how to put the percentages right on top of the pie chart. I think that's very helpful. Then you have to look back to the table at all. So let's see if right, left, bottom. I wonder what label does. And we'll check that and see if that does it. But that's pretty good there. So choose that label option, and then you can see them very, very quickly just by looking at the graph. So we've done number one here. Find the proportion of operations that fall in the SPY category. So our answer for number two, we can just type it right below the pie chart. In the SPY category, that's 16%, so that's 0.6 as a proportion. So we can answer that pretty good. There we go. Let's skip a line there. 3. Find the proportion of operations that do not fall in the SPY category. So what we can do there is just subtract SPYs from the number 1. Remember, all of them add up to 100%, which is one whole thing. So we're just going to take 1 and subtract that 0.16. I'm going to do that right inside Now, yeah, I'll just do it inside a cell over here so you can see how I can do that calculation. I'm just going to hit the equal sign, and I'm going to type in 1 minus 0.16, the amount of the proportion of spies, and I'll hit equal sign, and it'll tell me it's 0.84. So in number 3 here, hopefully, cancel, yes. All right, let's get in here to number 3 and edit that guy. So for number 3, we're going to say 0.84. Do not want to be spies, like so. Number 4, find the proportion of the observations that fall in the category of athlete or movie star. So athlete, if you look at it, professional athlete is 12%, movie star is 10%. So that means 22% would like to be either a professional athlete or movie star. And we want them to fall within that, so we just have to add the 12 and 10 together, giving us 22, or 0.22 as a proportion. So 0.22 would like to be a professional athlete or movie star. There we go. And lastly, number 5. On the basis of the pie chart, student concludes that 6% of all American children want to be doctors. Well, not we can't say that about all American children. This sample of 270 some students isn't, unless it was a perfect spread of the population and all the circumstances. There's no way this really applies to everybody. So there is certainly sampling error because we have such a small sample here. And there could be other errors in the survey. Maybe we just surveyed people in a particular school or a particular economic class. So there's lots of different errors we could have. But for the population of students, we do have a very good breakdown. And that's it. All right, now that we've looked at pie charts, let's take a look at what two-way tables are. Two-way tables, um, in them, you'll have frequencies that correspond to actually two categories at one time. We kind of did this way back a ways in the first section where we looked at these multiple bar charts where we'd have two different values on there at once. Here we'll be looking at these categorical variables and how we can combine two of them into a single sort of table. So let's take a look at some data here. In an anonymous survey, students in a class were asked their gender, male or female, and if they had read a novel in the past year. So here's the information that we're told from, or at least part of the information from the survey. And they wrote down their gender. So a male said, yes, he has read a novel in the past year. Another guy said no, and a female said yes. Now these are color coded right now, so you can tell the only male that said yes is in white, but there's two blue ones, and those two blues are both male that said no. Here's female that said yes, they're in red, so any red ones are females saying yes. And here we get a green one, which is the only female who says no. And so we really have two variables going on. You either are a male and you said yes or no, or you're a female and you said yes or no. And we can combine these two then and try and make a chart. It's a little bit easier to read. So you can see across the top here, um, I first have our vertical column is the answer basically to the first question, male or female, what's your gender? And then as we go across here, we're asking the second question, did you or did you not read a novel? Okay, it's a single question, but it has two different answers. And so now we can tabulate this. So males said yes, I can put it in this chart. And I've got males did not read a novel and did read a novel. So we got males read a novel in the past year. Wow, I have flip-flopped my data here. Ooh, I'm going to have to correct that. Let me pause for a second and then I will get back to the video. All right, after a little bit of work here, what I did is I had these two flip-flopped. So now our data does fit. Males who did not read, and here they are in blue, male, no, male, no. Male who did read, we got one of those. And you see our total across here for men. We surveyed apparently 3 in this group that we see here. Let's check our females. Did not read. And there, that one is in green. There was one. 3 of them in red did read last year. And these are the totals vertically. So we had a total of 3 who did not read. Doesn't matter if they're male or female, just a total of 3. And then we had 4 that did. And so this table is really, when I look at this too, it's telling me a couple of things. It's telling me these 2 people are male, and they did not read a novel in the past year. And so now we can use this proportion to answer some of those questions that we saw previously. Okay. Let's go ahead and expand now. This is a new table. It's the same data now, but we're doing it for a bigger population, just 42 students. The previous table was just a sample of these 42. But now here is the full data set for all the students. So now we got 6 males who didn't read and 19 that did, 6 females who didn't, 11 who did, 12 total who did not, and 30 who did. And let's go ahead then and answer a few questions. There they are. How many of the students read a novel in the past year? What proportion of the students did not read? What proportion of the women read a novel in the past year? What proportion of men? And so I've broken them down. Let's answer them one at a time. How many of the students read a novel in the past year? Did read a novel in the past year? How many students? Well, that's 30 of them. 30 students. That's it. Easy enough. Next question. What proportion of students did not read a novel in the past year? Well, we just looked at how many read last year. We want the ones who did not read. Oops. Let's go back here. Apparently, there we go. The portion that did not read is 12 out of a total of 42. So 12 over 42. Let's see here. 6 goes into both of those. And it's 2/7. So 2/7, and we can just put that as a decimal. I don't have my calculator with me right now. But whatever that is as a decimal would be the proportion. Or 2 out of 7 would be just fine if you want to leave it as a fraction, which to me makes more sense sometimes if you don't go to a percent. So we get number 3. What proportion of the women read a novel? Oh, proportion of the women. So females, we have a total of 17 women. So this question is out of the women, so out of 17. What proportion of women read a novel in the past year? So did read 11 out of 17. And so again, we can get out our calculator and enter that as a decimal, or you can leave it 11 out of 17. That is the proportion. But again, if we're doing a pie chart, you do want to convert that to a decimal and then to a percent. Problem number 4. What proportion of the men read a novel? Let's go to our men. There was 25 men. Men read a novel. That's 19 out of 25. Again, we can leave that as a proportion, or I'm going to go ahead and multiply the top and bottom here by 4. And I'll show you why in a second. When I do that, on the top I get 36 carried by 3. I get 76 over, and here's why I took it times 4 over 4. 25 times 4 is 100. So this is 76 hundredths, 0.76, or 76%. And so 76% of the men did read a novel last year. That was our last question. We got another one here now. In 2012, a total of 1,824 adults were asked the following question. Do you favor or oppose the death penalty for persons convicted of murder? The table compares the adult responses with their ethnicities. So we have, again, this is a two-way table because we are in our vertical column. We have the first category here. Or categorical variable, do they favor or oppose the death penalty? But we have another categorical variable, which is their race, African American, Caucasian, or other. And so we can get some totals here out of the African Americans that were surveyed. 128 were in favor of it, while 140 were against it. 268 African Americans asked. Caucasians, 953 out of 414, and 414 said no. There's our other results, so on. So let's answer some questions about these. Again, on the next slide, you'll see a bunch of questions, but then we will break it down and do one at a time. Okay, find the proportion of adults in the survey, yada, yada, yada. I'll pause it for a moment if you want to look at it, or pause the video. On the next slide, you'll see it's just the first question. So here it is. Find the proportion of adults in the survey. All right, well, we got 1,824 adults who oppose the death penalty or are Caucasian. Well, let's see here. Or are Caucasian. Well, let's take care of all the Caucasians first. So of all the Caucasians, there are 1,367. Oops, let's go back. So that takes care of this, or are Caucasian. We got to count everybody there. Then we also want to count survey who oppose the death penalty. Now we don't want to double count the Caucasians. They can be in both groups. But if we some of our Caucasians are already going to agree, are already going to oppose the death penalty, but they're still going to be in our final answer because they fit the "are Caucasian" part of this or statement. So let's find the survey who oppose the death penalty. So we got 140 African Americans, we got 81 other. We also had the 414, but the 414 is already included in that 1,367. So all we have to do now is add on the 140 for the African Americans who opposed it. We have to add on the 81 for the other groups that opposed it. Let's get a total here. It's 8, 10 plus 8, 18, 5. So 1,588 opposed it or are Caucasian. So that's 1,588 out of the total number of adults, which is 1,800 one. And that one actually, we should quit jumping like that. So back here, this comes out to 0.871 or about 87.1% were either Caucasian or opposed the death penalty. Next question. Find the proportion of adults, so we're dealing with everybody in the survey, who oppose the death penalty, so that's these guys, and are Caucasian. Okay, so now we're doing an and statement. So first of all, we can only be dealing with Caucasians. Why? Because they have to make the second part of this true, but they also at the same time have to make the first part oppose the death penalty, so that's everybody here that opposes. Now where they overlap, oops, I wish there was a highlighter, is right there. They overlap at the 414. So there's 414 people that are both Caucasian and oppose it. Out of the total number of adults, again, that's 1824. And this comes out to be about 0.303 or about 30.3%. Question number 3. Find the proportion of Caucasians, so we're in this column again, who oppose the death penalty. So that's with the proportion again, and that's just going to be 414. So we get the same number. Oops, I think my thing just jumped on me. There we go. We did the 414 right here. Occasions who oppose it, again out of 1824. Ooh, find the proportion. Find the proportion of Caucasians, not the whole group. Better be careful there. 484 proportion of Caucasians. We only got the 1,367 of them. Be careful there. And so we did the math there. Where are you? 484. It's just a mess. See if all that will go away. So it's 414. There we go. Now the total number of Caucasians, which is 1,367. So that's 0.303 or 30.3%. What in the heck was my last one? Find the portion of adults surveyed who opposed the death penalty in our Caucasian. That was 414 out of 1824. Good. Except that does not give you 30.3, 0.227 or 22.7%. There's my mistake. The next one was correct here. That is 30.3. Next one, number 4. Find the proportion of African Americans now. So here's the African Americans who oppose the death penalty. That's 140. And we want out of the proportion of the whole group. Well, the whole group of African Americans was 268. So 140 divided by 268, that gives you 52.2 percent. And our last question. The student says that Caucasians in the study are more likely to oppose the death penalty than Americans in the study because more Caucasians, 414, oppose the death penalty than the African Americans, 140. What would you tell the student? Well, when we just did percent of Caucasians, it was, 30.3% of Caucasians did not like the death penalty. But when we did African Americans, it was 52.2%. So even though more Caucasians said, yeah, they oppose it, it's actually a lower percentage of Caucasians, almost 20, over 20% lower. So you tell the student, well, actually not, because if you base off percentage, um, that really tells you a better detail of who opposes and who is in favor of the death penalty. All right, that's it.